they need to hear that I have been faithful through it all. So it gets me emotional because I haven't always felt like, I haven't always trusted that he's been faithful, but with hindsight, it's clear, and I'm not afraid of where he's leading me anymore, when maybe I was at the outset. And so I just want to say from experience, the Lord has been faithful to me, and he will be faithful to you. So I like to journal. Well, I actually don't really like to journal, but I do anyways. I've always had this thing about writing, and it's like, I don't really want to write because I'm a perfectionist and it takes too long and everything. But I felt like it was important, so I started doing it. And so I'll write down the things that the Lord speaks to me, or just journal what's going on in my life that I'm. So I have a few journal entries that I wrote down from the last few years. In preparation for this, thinking about the journey, I wanted to sort of relive or rethink what's happened. And so I was reading through a whole bunch of 2 years worth of journal entries. And so I pulled out a few of them. So we've been talking about Covenant of Yes. We had the Sallys here. We had Emily follow up with that the following week. And so when thinking about journeys, there's always the invitation, and we get a chance to respond or not. And we can say yes right away and then not do it, or we can be like, I don't want to do it, and then end up doing it anyways. So here's some of my invitation points or opportunities to follow him. So in September 2021, I got this word that I wrote down. I'll just read it. Will you let me lead you? I'm taking you on a road less traveled. Not many people go this way. It is a route of humility, of selflessness. No room for selfish ambition on the road to the cross. I'm asking you to die to yourself and live for someone else. Lay down your life for the prodigal, the outcast, the outlaw. Will you lay down your life for my kingdom? This is how you get famous in the kingdom, giving up your life for another. Laying down your dreams for mine. Letting me design your life, direct your steps, instead of going in the way that you choose. Let me choose, and it will be better than anything you could design in your own thinking and planning. My thoughts are higher. My way is higher. Take my way. I will make you what you need to be. I just need your permission to do it. Will you let me make you into a vessel? It means I need to work on you. It means you'll be hidden. It means it will take you a while. You can't go to where I've called you until you've been through this fire. It will take a few years. And in my mind's eye at that point, I saw 4 years, and it was like this process was the university of his presence. And so I was like, wow, that sounds cool. University of his presence. I'll be like slain in the spirit, having a good old time. So I was like, yeah, let's do that. University of his presence. Oh. Hey, don't get ahead. This is a spoiler. It wasn't exactly what I imagined, but it was still really good. So shortly after that, like a month later, it was like sort of a follow-up to that. That one's like, I'm taking you on a journey, and you're going to learn how to love. It's like loving the prodigal, outcast, outlaw. So that's sort of the overview. But then I got another word that was, I guess, the how. How do I get there? How do I learn to love? So I got a revelation about a topic. It's actually a pretty sensitive topic. It can be a really painful topic, especially for men. And it's one of the more controversial topics in the New Testament. It's circumcision. See what I did there? Painful. Yeah. So, once upon a time, I was thinking about, I was like, the Bible has some weird things, like circumcision. Who thought of that? It's like so bizarre. Like, what does that even mean? Why would, and this was like important. This is like God's covenant with Abraham, like the father of his people, the father of everyone in the faith ever to come, is like, I'm choosing you, and here's how I'm gonna mark that you're my chosen one. And it's circumcision. So I was thinking about that. It's like it's got to mean something, right? It's got to mean something important. And then as I'm thinking that, then this thought comes in my head. And it's like, before you are circumcised, your most intimate place is separated from God, except in special moments. You guys can catch my drift. After you are circumcised, your most intimate places are always exposed before him. So, obviously, it's a symbol of the circumcision of the heart. Circumcision means no more hiding. So, I wanted to share some scriptures because this has been really foundational to my walk, and it's been, it's sort of like set the tone for what this university of his presence was. And so, Jeremiah 31:33. Jeremiah is prophesying about the new covenant. He just got done saying, in the past it's been like this, but there's something new coming. And he says, "For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares the Lord. I will put my law within them, and I will write it on their hearts. And I will be their God, and they shall be my people." So when you're circumcised, when you're cut and your intimate part of your heart is exposed, you can't pretend anymore. It's a very vulnerable place. The Lord has access to your heart. And when he has access to your heart, then he can write on it. He can teach you. He can give you new things. This is what sanctification is all about. And I had another scripture, actually this Jeremiah 31:33, Paul, well, we don't know if it was Paul, but the writer of Hebrews quoted it in Hebrews 10:15 and 16. And so he's referencing this, talking about explaining the new covenant to the Hebrews, and he quotes this very important scripture. And then it goes on in Hebrews 10:19 through 22. It's like, in the old covenant, we were trying to follow God's rules, and we were afraid of him, and we would hide, like on the mountain when God reveals himself, and there's like thunder, and there's like a big cloud, and all the Israelites are like, "Moses, you go talk to him. We don't want anything to do with this. We'll do whatever he says, but we don't want to be close to him," because they're afraid, because they had been warned, if they draw near and their heart is not in the right place, then you're going to be toast. So they're afraid because they don't trust that God is going to be good and kind. So in Hebrews, it's like, this is not the old covenant, this is the new covenant. What do we actually do? We don't just follow rules. We actually are meant to draw near to God. So it says, "Therefore, brothers, since we have confidence to enter the holy places by the blood of Jesus, by the new and living way that he opened for us through the curtain, that is, through his flesh, and since we have a great priest over the house of God, let us draw near with a true heart in full assurance of faith, with our hearts sprinkled clean from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water." So this is an invitation for everyone who follows Jesus. And so this was that revelation moment where it happened to me. And so around that time, then the invitation that I felt I received was, will you model what it means to live with an open heart? And, I said yes to that, not knowing what it would mean. And my heart, I don't know, I don't think it's just me, but I think I'm not naturally like open with my heart. I don't know, I'm pretty shy, I'm pretty slow to open and trust people. But that makes me a great candidate for God to open my heart, because He likes to pick people who don't have everything figured out. He just needs us to be willing to say yes. So the final one that I'll point out is in about a year from then, September 2022. I was trying to buy a house. And, these words were, they were there, they had happened, but I didn't really know, like, what it actually meant practically. So we've got, will you let me lead you, teach you how to love. We've got, no more hiding, open up your heart to me. And now in September 2022, I put an offer on a house, and it seemed great, and then the offer didn't work out. And I'd been looking all summer, and nothing had really cropped up, and so I'm kind of discouraged. And I'm like, what's going on? I thought this was what you had for me. I even had words like about buying a house. And Amy Ward has talked about sometimes He gives you the choice. And it's like there's two options here, and it's up to you. He won't force you to go one way or another. And so I felt like this was one of these times. I had one option, which was I could buy a house. I could start building my life. I graduated college. I've got a stable job, and I could just kind of start down that American dream sort of path where I get a house, white picket fence. I get a wife and 2.5 children. I don't know if that stat still stands, but you live the American life, right? And it's not like that. Like, I feel like He would have blessed that. He is sincere when He gives us choices, but He gave me another option, another door. And I don't want to read this whole thing, but here's just a part of it. I'm placing a glory deposit in you, one the world has never seen before. It will start in your heart and travel to the nations, bringing revival wherever it touches, but it requires an undivided heart. Will you give your heart to me? Will you give your heart to me completely? It's one of those things where it's like, I don't know, it's like it's an encounter, right? And it's emotional, and it's like, wow, God's talking to me. And I said yes. I was like, yes, completely yes. My heart is yours. And so I was excited. And within a month, I had gone into burnout. And I was working, I was taking classes. There had been some really hard family stuff, some really hard church stuff. And I was plugging along. I was working a lot of hours. I was going to school a lot. Then where I worked, we'd just been a reorganization. There was a new manager who just got promoted into the role, and him and I were trying to make it through budget season, and it just was like the last straw. My boss went on leave without pay to deal with some health stuff, and I just felt all this pressure. And then one morning, I woke up, and I'm supposed to go to work, and I just stayed in bed. It's like paralysis, just all this anxiety that, I felt it, but I'd never been to this place before where I just felt paralyzed and couldn't do what I knew I needed to do. So this went on for a while. I got the sense something was wrong, and it probably had to do with stress, because I didn't understand what it was that was going on. But I withdrew from school. I took a lot of sick time that month, and I had the good sense to start counseling, to just sort of get at what's going on in me, like what is this thing? And so it was a really, really hard time, because it felt like I was used to feeling like self-sufficient. Like I put myself through school, I got this job, I've overcome lots of things, and I'm always strong, and I can lead, and I can do these, like I can do these things. And so that's hard. It's like a sense of loss or mourning when you realize, actually, there is weakness in me, and there's actually, I'm not as strong as I thought I was, but the reason I wasn't as strong as I thought I was is because there were things that I was trying to figure out myself that weren't mine to figure out. So there, I had lots of feelings that time, lots of feelings, anger, loss, fear, because I didn't know what was happening to me. And I want to say sadness is not evil. It's not a bad thing. There's times to weep, and there's times to experience pain. And Jesus experienced those things and modeled what it means to go through them. One thing that I learned in that time, and I've continued learning over the past couple years, is, Angela was really helpful in this. I felt like everything was going wrong in my life, and I met with her for coffee once, and she's had her share of difficult circumstances, and she told me some things about focusing on the goodness of God, and you praise and you worship, and it resets your perspective. I can't remember the exact things that she said, but I remember that meeting, and I've learned that you can experience God's goodness in times of weeping and pain and trouble, but when you doubt God's goodness and you let the doubt keep you from drawing near with a true heart, like it says in Hebrews, then you will have trouble experiencing it. So the deal is, you don't hide from pain. I think that's what I was doing, and that's why I needed to experience this. I don't think God struck me down with anxiety, but I had it there, and I just had it under the surface, and He let it come up so that I would address the thing that I needed to. Because if you go back to that first word, let's see. I will make you what you need to be. I just need your permission to do it. Will you let me make you into a vessel? It means I need to work on you. It means you'll be hidden. It means it will take you a while. You can't go to where I've called you until you've been through this fire. It will take a few years. It's the university of His presence. There's something about learning to handle pain, handle anxiety, handle our insecurities. There's parts of us that haven't been saved yet. Like we're justified in faith, but sanctification is an ongoing journey. And He wants to keep saving us. And as He saves us, it increases our capacity to love. And that's not the whole point. It's not like He wants us to be more productive in the kingdom, and this is how we have to get there. He wants to actually set us free so we experience more of Him. I'm kind of jumping ahead to the end, but it felt like a good time to say that. Yeah. So there's times where we're going to doubt his goodness because we're going to experience not goodness. And it's easy to just assume, well, this is because God isn't loving. And usually it's not overt. Like, we wouldn't say that. We know that's wrong. We go to church. But I think we lie to ourselves. I'll put it this way. I lied to myself. Like, I didn't have a true heart. Like, I convinced myself, I don't know, I convinced myself that I was believing all the right things, I guess. And if I was honest, then I would realize there was doubt, and there was things I didn't trust him with. And I think one thing I've really learned is that God doesn't want us to say the right things while believing something different. And when we doubt him, he's not afraid of that, and he's not angry. He actually wants to help us. He wants us to be honest with what we actually have going on in our heart, and honest with what we're actually feeling. And that can be really, really painful, and it can involve some angry prayers, and it can involve some things that we don't want to believe about ourselves. It's like we like to feel like we're self-sufficient, like I was saying, and it can be painful when we realize that we have weaknesses and we have areas that we need help. But that his design is not that we figure them out. His design is that we bring our open heart to him and bring our pain and our questions and doubts. And so it's okay to admit when you don't know what you thought you knew. So I had moments of doubt, but just a short scripture here. If we are faithless, he remains faithful. 2 Timothy 2:13. And so that's what I've found. When I've been faithless, and then he has been faithful to me. So like I said, I went through a bunch of journal entries and was reading them, and that just kind of, it ends up being a story of where my heart has been. And, as I've learned to open up my heart and tell him what's really going on, and counseling has been really instrumental in this, because I have to admit to myself what I'm feeling before I can tell it to someone else. And so it's a practice, it's an art to listen to your own heart and not filter it, not be afraid of what you'll find. And so in this process, a lot of things got brought up, and I just wanted to talk about some of them. And the things that he brings up in me may not be the same things that he wants to bring up in you, but there's probably going to be some overlap. And the point is not necessarily what he's teaching you, but he's taking all of us on a journey from glory to glory. We believe him now, and we've been saved now, and we have joy, love, peace right now. But he wants to take us into more of those. And as we let ourselves get saved in certain areas, Steve Backlund is talking about mindsets. We can believe that Jesus is Lord and Savior, and we can still believe that everything's going to go wrong in our lives. Or, so he talked a lot about that, and sanctification, part of it is changing the way we think. Where was it? It would have been, it's Romans 12. This one stuck out to me recently in the past week. I don't have it written down, but he's like sharing the gospel, and he's like, well, let us, basically says we're going to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. I should probably pull it up. Oh, did you get it? Oh, that's nice. Thanks. Yeah. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is, I don't read that right, but good. What is that good? Okay. What is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God? That's part of sanctification, is learning to change the way we think. So anyway, I have a list of things. It's like a whole page, but I don't know if I'll talk about all of them. But here's some things that he's worked on me about and helped me grow in. Social anxiety and initiating friendships. I don't always do that easily, but he's helped me. Telling people what I need and asking for help. In family and friend relationships, acknowledging offenses and forgiving them. And part of that is bringing it up. You have to tell them that you have an offense, and that can be hard. Instituting boundaries, in other words, not taking responsibility for things that aren't mine. We did the table and keep your love on, and that was part of that. Having difficult but important conversations. And then some things about how I see myself. Believing that I am good and valuable inherently. Believing I am powerful and can make powerful decisions. Keep your love on again. Treating and talking to myself the way I would treat others, with kindness and generosity. We have do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Sometimes we don't do unto ourselves what we do unto others because we think we're somehow less than or not valuable. And I've learned to be a lot kinder to myself, and that actually helps me be kinder to other people. I've learned about rest. Actually having a Sabbath, and taking daily pauses as well, so that I don't run myself into burnout again. Learning when to say no is an important part of rest, and actually keeping a balanced, consistent schedule. It's very helpful. Some of this is just very practical. It's not all spiritual and in the sky. It comes down to the ground level. Thoughts and emotions. Processing my thoughts and feelings without fearing or ignoring them. I've talked about that. Handling trauma. Handling and releasing anxiety and stress. Then biblical optimism and making positive declarations. This one's new. Steve Backlund said we were never going to be the same again, and I've never been the same again. It's an ongoing process. I think I have I forget, but I haven't graduated the University of His Presence yet. I'm somewhere around year 3, I think. And in my sexuality, gaining a healthy view on sexuality and that its interest and attraction isn't bad. Identifying and overcoming lust and loneliness, and also not being afraid of committing the sin, which can be just as harmful. And contentment in my singleness. I've learned some spiritual practices, communion, and making it really personal and real to me and meaningful, and not just something that I do. And then thanksgiving, praise, and worship, especially to reset perspective. When you declare the truth in praise, then it reminds your heart that it actually is true. So that's really what he wants. He wants us to give thanks to him and be able to see his goodness. When it comes to my work, learning how to speak up when change is needed, learning how to deal with change and uncertainty, and then things about my future, dealing with being hidden, like there's things I know I want to do and things that he's called me to, and I'd like to do that right now so it would make me feel good, but it's not about validating myself. It's about using my gifts and talents when and where he wants me to use them. And that way it stays healthy. And then also handling disappointment when plans don't work out. So I narrowed this list down because I didn't want more than 4 pages of notes. But that's a lot of things. What's that? In 2-3 years? And all these things, just want to circle back. Why does he take us on journeys? Like, he could have made it perfect at the start, and it kind of comes into this age-old question of why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? And I think, he did design a universe where pain happens. And some people use that and say he can't be a good God. But he subjected himself to it. He came as Jesus and experienced every suffering we have in the worst way. And if you've got a God who does that, subjects himself to the same pain, there must be good in it. And so I think it must mean that when we experience pain and then we overcome it and experience joy, it makes it that much more worth it. And then sanctification, I've said this again, I want to reiterate, is about setting us free from our prisons. So 2 Corinthians 3:16 through 18. I like this one. It kind of ties together the points very nicely. It says, but when one turns to the Lord, and the Passion says when one turns to the Lord with an open heart, and the veil is removed, so we can actually see him. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And we all, with unveiled face, beholding the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. For this comes from the Lord who is the Spirit. So when we open our heart and take a risk and go somewhere with him, then we get to see more of him, and we gain freedom, and we get transformed to look more and more like him with each yes, with each leg of the journey. So it sets us free from our prisons, it helps us know him more, and it also increases our capacity to love. There was this video that I watched a couple years ago that was also very impactful. I couldn't find the name. It was an Eric Gilmore video, but he was asking someone else a question, and I couldn't even find the guy's name. But basically what he said was, there are places we can't go until the Lord deals with certain heart issues. Once he deals with the pain, we can go a lot further, and we'll be able to hold the glory he has prepared for us. So I think the Lord, he's a storyteller, and he wants to walk with us like friends. And so he gives us journeys so that we can walk with him, and so that we can grow, and so that we can have an adventure. And so there's a perspective thing there of, feels like nothing goes right. Why do bad things happen, and then pain happens, and I have to deal with it? Well, it's not a have to. If we can see it like he did, there's a joy set before us, then it can be an adventure, and it can be a way to grow close to him. So, just sort of wrapping up, I know each of us, we're here, and so God has called us on a journey of some kind. Maybe he's calling you on a new one right now. Maybe you're in the middle of one. Maybe one's just ending, but there's always somewhere he's leading us. And obviously, corporately, it's a big change coming, and he's leading us into something new. We don't know all the details yet, but we can kind of pick out some things. And So I wanted to encourage every one of you to let him lead you. He's asking the question that he asked me 3 years ago, will you let me lead you? And he will be faithful when you follow him. So one thing I wanted to do as I end is just have a little bit of time for listening prayer so that we can ask him where he's leading you specifically. And so maybe we could put on a fluffy worship pad or something and just listen and maybe journal it, write it down. It might be something new, but it might be something where it's just confirming where you've already been going. And so I think it's always encouraging to hear confirmation. And so I want to take a little bit of time and do that. So.